This week on the Three Rings podcast.
Even the professional level of our industry is operating unprofessionally, which almost just opens the gate for this to happen, because then you can't spot what's wrong and what's right.
Welcome to the 17th episode of the Three Rings podcast. My name's Stuart Bishop and I'm here with my fellow director, Bodhi Muir.
Before we get going, subscribe to the channel, click a like on the video and turn on your notification bell so you know all about next week.
This week's episode, we focus on allegations against Bodhi Talent, which has seen the agency and its owners accused of malpractice and exploiting their own actors and fellow professionals.
If you want to check out the full story, linked underneath this video, we'll have links to the articles that have been released by Deadline, which, as some people will know, is a major entertainment and arts publication, which details absolutely everything. There's that much there. We're not going to sit and read it all out for you, but to give you a rough gist, Bodhi Talent is an agency who primarily sat on the sort of acting scene of UK agents. And in the past week, 2 weeks, there's been an awful lot of allegations come out regarding withholding payments, not disclosing the full fees to their actors, claiming they're raising money for charities that the charities never receive. You could honestly go on and on with the amount of accusations and the range of accusations that have been put against them. So we just wanted to have a chat, not necessarily just about Bodhi, but more around these issues within the industry and potentially what the industry can do to avoid this happening again, which obviously is such an important topic.
We decided when we had our meetings on, how should we present this, the more we looked into it, the more we were like, right, okay, it's obvious this guy, and the guy's called Archie Purnell. Archie Purnell is the director, and there's a co-director as well. Ricky Wilson, or is that the guy from the Kaiser Chiefs?
That's the Kaiser Chiefs guy. Come on, don't be chucking in down it. Ricky Cortis is the partner.
It's obvious this guy it seems to be a bit of a crook, and what we have to say is these are, at the moment, nothing's been proved in court, so they are allegations, and what we decided is we're not going to sit here for an hour or so and just slag this guy off. I think he's going to get his karma, he's going to get his comeuppance. He's obviously a crook, but we were like, right, let's talk about him right at the start, but we don't need to go on too much about him potentially, do we?
Yeah, exactly. That's it. It's driving the conversation forward. Obviously, absolute sympathy to anyone who's been affected by this. We personally know people affected by this. But as an industry, this is going on in more than just this one place. So we just want to make sure to have a conversation that maybe just puts a few thoughts out into the universe that may help avoid this kind of situation in the future.
So I think it's safe to say that this is, they've done wrong, and they should be punished if there is a punishment out there. However, like you say, we're going to focus on some of these things that they're accused of doing, and we're going to talk about how they happen, and how we can stop them from happening. Because I know you've had a go at me before when I've accused people of, they've got to get tougher and things like that. And actors do need to get tougher, and they need to get smarter. However,
do you know what?
Go on.
I was going to say, what I would say to that is the industry needs to become more professional to allow them to do that. Because I've seen so much on Twitter now over the past week of like, here's the red flags so you can spot this if it happens. And for example, I'm going to use names because we have to in this conversation to highlight just how unprofessional the industry is. And sorry, because some of these are our clients. But I saw one on Twitter being like, how do you spot if a job is fake or not? And they said the BBC wouldn't ring you at 10 o'clock at night. I've literally had the BBC ring me at 10 o'clock at night on the Sunday. It happens, and this is where even the professional level of our industry is operating unprofessionally, which almost just opens the gate for this to happen, because then you can't spot what's wrong and what's right. The red flags they're citing should be correct, but unfortunately it's not the industry existing. which I think is where huge change needs to happen.
There was someone saying on there, well, a red flag of an agent is if they don't have an office. And it's like, well, there are many agents out there who work from home, especially now since the pandemic. Our agency ourselves, we used to have an office. We had an office for nearly 20 years. We currently do not have an office. Whether we ever go back to an office, I don't know.
The current industry doesn't require an office. In-person meetings aren't happening. Everything is Zoom. Even if you're sat on one side of London and your client's on the other, you're going to jump on Zoom rather than jump on a tube. It's completely changed. That necessity to have the office is no longer there.
I would say from looking at all these articles, you know, maybe 20% or 30% is that where I look at it and go, it's a bit hyped up. It's a bit, okay, you don't understand the industry or whatever. But there are common themes. First one, fake tapes. I laugh at this because as an agent, I'm thinking, why on earth would you do it? However, I can only think, and, you know...
Well, it's what they say in the article, don't they? He was doing it to bolster his standing in the industry. Make it look like his agency's bringing opportunity.
I can see it. I can see what you're saying. You're saying the reason why someone might do this is to enhance their reputation. But the problem with that is as a busy agency, I just don't get why you would want to create fake tapes or fake auditions or you know, it's not going to get you anywhere in the end of the day.
I mean, I have to think about the long term of it as well, the effect that's having on these actors doing endless tapes and never getting success. By the time they get a real one, they're so used to not being successful that they don't have the mind space to excel in that tape. In my mind, it's almost better to only have one tape every once in a while if you're actually booking from that tape than having 20 a week and never being successful, because it's just this spiral of rejection, which is never good for your mental.
We've talked in other episodes how, you know, the self-tape, it's just one massive, you know, it just feels like one massive waste of time. We know for a fact that all those self-tapes don't get looked at.
No, that's all. I think this whole thing really opens up another whole world of questions around whether this self-tape process should still be going ahead, because it's just so easy to exploit. As an agent coming from like a good place, I'd never thought about it in this sense beforehand. But when you put it in these lights and an actor wants to turn around to me and go, how can we spot if a self-tape is fake? Hands up, I have no idea whatsoever. It's far too easy. And when it's that exploitable, should we be keeping doing it?
Yeah, well, I read somewhere someone said, well, this is why, you know, Zoom casting should be more popular.
I mean, I always come to the casting director title. You can't direct a self-tape. You can direct a Zoom audition, still not as well as the in-person, but at least you are then being a casting director. I think that is a really important distinction. The Zoom casting is just as accessible as a self-tape. If anything, more accessible, because then you don't need the whole lighting setup and all of that. You can just have your webcam.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, I think, you know, why would you want to have an audition, or why would you want to put people on camera for an important role and not have met them in person and not have had a proper sort of casting, whatever. Now, this brings it back down to, if it's not that important, why are we doing all these mass castings, 1,000, you know, getting 1,000 applications for one role, which is worth like 600 quid for a day or something? It's at that level. I mean, we've said it before. We said it in the last episode. At that level, a casting director should be going, you don't need all this rubbish. Here's the person you need, because I'm a casting director. I'm an expert and I know who you want because you've told me the brief of what you're looking for.
I think this is also brings into question what I've said before with the difference between a casting to like a job interview. That job interview is way more important than we make it in our industry. I always think of it in a sense of you should be able to see the ability from the CV and the showreel. The actual in-person should be getting to know, is this person a good person to cast? Not is the talent a good talent? You can get the talent side from somewhere else. Which again is why I think that in-person is so important. The self-tape does not give you enough to really trust in the casting you're making.
I saw one argument regarding the fake tapes about getting, and I know this is done in a non-dodgy way as well. But I've heard people do this, getting their artists to practice self-tapes, and I don't see anything completely wrong with that. Although it just feels again, I think it was you actually who had a good point on why this was crap.
Well, the thing is, as an agent, I always say, especially in this era now where self-tapes are such a thing, you should trust your actors that they are good at self-tapes. If they're not, why have you signed them? Because that is now how this industry operates. In like 2020, when it was first starting and no one had really done a self-tape, maybe like once or twice in their career, in that moment, yes. But we're 4 years on from that now. Everyone's used to doing self-tapes. You shouldn't be signing someone who isn't able to do that. And I also think this is potentially a question with agencies' recruitment processes as well, that we don't yet see how they self-tape, which is such a major part of us getting them jobs. Especially on a dance level where it used to be we'd go and do in-person auditions. That was always so we know when we send them to an in-person audition what they're putting out. We never see what does that self-tape look like before it's for real. You don't need to teach a professional how to do their job, which is exactly the way I look at this self-tape practice at this point in time.
God, he must have had... there must be an end game to it. It must be right. If I get enough fake auditions giving it to my people, they'll think I'm amazing at, oh yeah, we always get this. And then from that, he must be thinking, if I'm that popular, it gets me this. There must have been, because there must have been a motive, if it can't just be he wants to be popular amongst his people, because that don't make you any money.
I mean, to be cynical with it, if I try and put myself in that mindset, I guess a presumption you could make is it's going right. If all of my actors right now are saying that they're really busy and I always get them self-tapes, that should help me land an actor who genuinely gets that level of self-tapes and therefore I should book. It's bolstering that reputation to get, I don't want to say better talent, because unfortunately by the sounds of it, the talent have been so underrepresented that no one even really knows whether they would have had that amount of self-tapes. I think this is the worst part of all of this as well, like the level of stalling people's careers. And I saw one actor put out on Twitter, like, I have no idea if I actually haven't if I've not existed in the industry for the past 2 years because I've had an agent who was making me thought I existed.
When I do hear things like that, I do think there are too many people throwing their eggs into one basket. It
opens a conversation around this whole exclusive management, doesn't it? At that level of the industry, is it necessary, or does that also open up exploitation? Like I've heard you say before, Stuart, if your agent has 30 of you, why can't you have 30 of your agent? It's meant to be a 50-50 relationship, but exclusive management on that level is not 50-50.
Right, so next one is the withholding payment. Now, withholding payment and late payments. So let's distinguish the difference to this. Why don't you say what's been going on regarding the withholding of payment?
Yeah, so the withholding of payments is there are accusations that the agency has been paid by their client, but then have been telling their talent that they're still waiting for the client to pay, knowing full well that money is sat in the bank. And this has just spiraled on and on and on. Hey, agent, has the money come through? No, it's not. Still sat in the bank, still sat in the bank. And the actors just never end up with it until there's a certain story in amongst the articles of equity had to get involved at one point. And then, without too much explanation, suddenly the money was there and the situation was over. That is basically an exploitation of a situation that agents will often face with late payments. Unfortunately, it's not uncommon as an agency to be paid late by your client and therefore end up having to pay your talent late as well. And again, where I kind of said earlier on that on the professional level of our industry, it's still so unprofessional, it opens up room for exploitation. Really, actors should be able to know that their agent will always be paid on time because that is professional business. But unfortunately, that is not the reality of our business at this moment in time. And again, this is where we have to fix it on a professional level so the actual unprofessional stuff stands out. So right now it's like the professional and the unprofessional are both unprofessional. It opens the door to everything.
This is the one which when I looked at it, I had to put my agent head on and I had to look at it from the other side. It's incredibly frustrating for performers, I know, when they don't get paid on time. It's even more frustrating, trust me, for the agent who's responsible for paying you.
I'm 10 of you, not just one of you.
Exactly. There's nothing worse. There used to be years ago, Bailey, this myth that went round, and it came about when I was a dancer. Maybe it was around beforehand, but I know people were talking about it then. They used to say, and I remember someone telling me this on an escalator. It's one of my earliest memories of being in London. Someone said to me on this escalator, another dancer, yeah, you know what the agents do? They hold the money and they make thousands from interest. And I was like, God, that's so bad. And then when I became an agent, I was like, you'd have to hold the money for a hell of a long time to make much interest on anything. Especially if it's just one person's payment, 600 quid or something like that.
Even large amounts. Let's say you've got a commercial buyout.
Yeah.
That's still going to have to be sat around a good 2-3 years to make any sort of decent interest.
Well, and if you hold it for 2 or 3 years, you're probably going to lose money through
inflation.
Exactly.
Yeah. It doesn't actually align with reality as a statement.
It doesn't. However, one thing that we've always done as an agency is that we've said the moment it comes, we will pay you. There's no messing about with that. I don't like having other people's money in our bank account because it's nothing worse. You don't know what's going on. So, at the end of the month, you want to get everything out. And I mean, we don't even do monthly payments. We do literally the moment it comes in. If you've got your invoice in, we'll pay you the next day.
That's it. I mean, even just keeping track of your own company's capital. You don't want anything sat in there that's somebody else's asset.
In the 25 years, maybe we've had one or two people, because it does happen. It does happen. It takes, sometimes you get a client and, this has happened and this person's ill and Janice in accounts isn't here today and there's been a problem with this. You didn't fill out, what's the old, what they called, what you have to fill out, the, what are they called, Bailey?
Purchase order.
Purchase order.
Sign off your purchase order.
Sign off your purchase order.
Honestly. Yeah, you never signed that purchase order that we never actually sent to you. Yeah. We've had that.
And these things do happen. And sometimes, we can't, as an agency, keep saying, let's say they've got a month to pay, right? We normally do 14 days, don't we? 14 days. And if we can get it in advance, we get it in advance. But
I was going to say, at this moment in time, I put every deal in advance, to be honest with you.
Well, there you go.
At least a deposit.
You've got your, let's say it's 14 days. Let's say that. we can't on the first and second day and the third day ring them up and go, just checking you're going to pay on the 4th day. We can't do that on the 5th day. We can't do that on the 10th day. Now, maybe a couple of days beforehand, you might want to, give a reminder if it's someone who's paid late before. However, we haven't got time to be doing that.
Even the day it's meant to arrive, you have to trust that they're going to make that payment. I always think until the day after, you can't go in heavy-handed. Because also it's that long-term relationship. You've got to be able to trust your clients. If it's coming in 14, you've got to trust it's coming in 14.
And it's the other way as well with your performers, your talent. I always say, if you're owed on this day, don't call us up having a go at us on that day that the money hasn't come. Because it's like, look.
It still might be.
It still might be. And guess what? Right? Because people, it's like they call you to almost, because they think that you don't know about it. You've forgotten, did you know? Of course we bloody knew. Yeah, your money is the commission from your money is how we make our living. So of course we know. And this is why I can't understand this part of the allegations, why an agent would want to do that, because it's only going to lead to this type of thing. It's only going to lead to people hating you, having a go at you, just harassing you on the phone. Why do you do it? Why would you want to do that? Can you imagine, Bailey, if we had a big job, say 20, 30 people, and it's late payment, and we've got it, and we thought, right, well, we'll do it next week, even though they know, I don't know. But this is the thing, sometimes they don't know when, a lot of agencies don't give people information. Now, we for all our sins, we put on, this is when it's meant to be in by, and this is when you're going to be paid by. It doesn't always, it doesn't, sometimes it's like a noose around our neck by doing that, do you know what I mean? But we want to be transparent, don't we?
Oh, for sure. And I think, to be honest, this opens up something that can actually be done as a reasonable solution. These past couple of scenarios, it's like you can't really find a fix for, other than on a professional level, let's not do it. On this, actually, especially with technology nowadays, will be very easy to create some sort of system that can be manned maybe by someone like Equity, that all the contracts get put through there and everyone is then in the loop. When production make the payment, it's marked on a system, talent and agent can see it. So if it's being held at the agent level, the talent know. If it's being held at the production level, the talent know. The talent should be in the loop on that process. This draws parallels to the music industry. Within music, you have companies like the RIAA, who deal with sort of like the royalties from streaming and things like this. And with that, the record label contracts are just entered in with RIAA. And then in a similar sense to that sort of like agent talent, 15/85 split, etc., when the client pays, and money goes to RIAA, and then they pay record label 15, talent 85, and it can't get stuck anywhere but at the client level. And it just adds this extra layer of protection, transparency to the process that actually none of us should be scared of unless we're trying to exploit this system.
So what you're talking about is like an escrow account or a holding account, a little bit like the boxing do that. And when you pay rent, the landlord doesn't keep your deposit. That goes into a deposit scheme, doesn't it?
But yeah, I mean, to go down that escrow account, that actually is an even more advanced version of that sort of RIAA system. That music industry system, I believe, still relies on the client paying first of all. Obviously, within music, it's also regulated that shouldn't really occur a problem because you're dealing with Spotify, for example. Chances of them paying later are very slim. Whereas the escrow, the company would actually have to pay into the escrow before the job can go ahead. And therefore, as soon as it's signed off that the job's done, that money is going back out. So it's kind of like ourselves as an agency getting the money in advance. We then know we can pay. but that doesn't actually give the talent any protection against the agent. The escrow gives everyone protection against each other. The job's cancelled, money will revert back to the client in terms of cancellation policy. The job's done, it's going to split to the agent and the talent, and they never have to handle each other's money. It's a hell of a lot safer, and I can't understand why our industry hasn't done it before now, to be honest with you.
Well, they should be like smart contracts. So basically, here's your money. Here's
An escrow is basically just a paper version of a smart contract. So an escrow has been around for years, and that's very much you'd go to the bank, you fill out the paperwork, all of that kind of thing. Smart contract is more algorithmic, automated, which definitely, to be honest with you, is the way it should go. I would naturally jump to equity should do that. There might be some law as a union that they can't handle it, but someone should. Someone should definitely be picking that up and doing it.
Well, as an industry, that there seems to be a lot of, I suppose it's a bit like the building industry, isn't it? Like when you have builders, you get these big companies that are doing, they get the government contracts and they're doing these massive sites. And then you get the everyday builder. Now, it's the everyday builder that is more, more, I suppose, renowned for having dodgy work, or they didn't do this properly, and they overcharged and stuff like that. It's the protection for the little people. Because the big people generally, yes, you do hear about massive companies sometimes going out bust, or celebrities not getting paid or whatever, but it's normally the little people who suffer. And in this case, taking it back to what we're talking about, the actors are, they're the ones, they're desperate for their money, they're living paycheck to paycheck, and they want to make sure that and there should be, whether it's equity or whoever, should be guaranteeing them safety within these tiny little contracts. And any type of, basically anything under a certain amount should be it's paid in advance. It's paid in advance. And in fact, you go to a restaurant, you pay almost straight away once you've eaten. It's not I've eaten, now I'm going to pay in 30 days. Majority of things, people don't care about paying up front. If I go to a shop, before I'm allowed to take those clothes or those shoes home, I have to pay.
It's like we're educated that a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day payment window is okay and normal. But actually, it's bad business, let's be totally real. We shouldn't be doing it. We only do it because it's normal. Now,
let's talk about when it comes to, so let's say someone's done a job for us. The payment date has gone, which is, let's say it was today, and they haven't received it. What should then, what is as an actor or a performer, what should they be doing? One thing I know they shouldn't be doing is ringing up, screaming and saying, you owe me money, you owe me money. By all means, cool, but you need to be chilled with it. You need to find out the situation, what's going on. Because if you're then going back to an equity, if you do feel like something's happening, you need facts. You need what's happening and what's going on and when it was meant to. Screaming or having a go at an agent never is a good thing. I always think you want to keep your agent on side. At the end of the day, they're the ones still trying to get the money for you.
But this is a problem with these situations. It's when stuff like this happens that makes the actors then ring the other agents up, kicking off and screaming. Because this teaches them that the agents exploit it, which isn't the overall reality, but for a percentage of the industry obviously is. And it's those horror stories that trigger everyone. This is where really I think we need that transparency system. Because I can't give an actor an advice on how to work out if your agent is withholding the payment or not. You don't want to have to be the actor that gets in touch with production and goes, have you paid my agent or not? But without that technology, they are forced at a point to do that. This really is where I think something like equity needs to implement something that avoids that process. I don't think this is something that can change or even be helped on an actor's level, that an actor can do better. I think the industry needs to provide a solution. It's not anything one individual actor or one individual agency, casting director can do. It's like a missing piece of infrastructure.
I think you're right, because I would say 90, over the 25 years, 95%, 96%, of everything that we've ever got, we've paid people on time. When I think about the times where we haven't paid, maybe looking back, we could have been stricter with our payment terms at those points. Now we're very, very strict, and still it occasionally happens. It occasionally happens where people have to be reminded, especially if they're a massive company, the person you're dealing with. Then go, oh, have you not been paid? Oh, let me check. And they've got no idea because they've gone on to something else.
But you've never had a point that you've chosen not to pay. That's the key distinction here. The separation of what to do when your agent hasn't been paid is very different than what to do when your agent's been paid and claims they haven't. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, you got to pay your talent, otherwise.
Yeah.
I
mean, we've paid talent before. We've even been paid before when it gets to that extreme situation. Do you know what I mean? And that's what really an agent should do. If you haven't been able to get the money, you take the hit.
Yes, no, definitely. I remember taking the hit for Christy Perilla. She got her money. I took the hit because this bloody Turkish production company would not pay the extra overtime. And yeah, it was in my head, I've said, right, you're getting paid here, don't worry, you'll get your money, blah, 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 blah. Then it doesn't happen, and I'm like, fucking hell, that's going to make me look bad. So you make that decision. Now, obviously, if it's 20, 30 grand, you might make a different decision. But, it was a smaller amount, which I was able to pay. And in my head, phew, she's paid. Now I can deal with that. And sometimes when you get these people who are creating massive problems, it can take a long time. We won't go into details, but we've just had something which has taken a long time, which we've eventually got, which was the same type of situation. But as an agent, you always want to play, you just want to, here's your money, so we know that you're okay. That's over yourself. You're always wanting to make your clients happy.
That's it. Accountability has to be taken at the nearest possible level. If your client isn't going to be accountable, then you have to be. You can't just pass it on.
Not disclosing true fees.
Now, we know, don't we, Stuart, this is actually rife amongst entertainment, unfortunately.
It is, especially in the modelling world. We've had before people who have come to us and said, look, I've been sent up by my modelling agency and you guys. I want to go through you guys, and we obviously have to say, well, who contacted you first? But people have said, well, the thing is, this person contacted me first, but you guys have contacted me with the same thing, and you've got all this information about fees, and you've put it all there, and my modelling agency or this agency haven't.
Well, the amount of times I hear it, you've got this amount of money, but my other agent only got £200. And I'm like, I never negotiated that. The client set those fees. Honestly, rife. It's quite scary to think. Like, when you read these articles, you want to believe this is a one-off situation, but this one really isn't. What
it's being alleged here is that he's saying it's this amount, but it's then actually been more. And what's happened with that extra, we don't know.
It's like, obviously, as an agent, you have your agreements with your talent, don't you? Of like, right, we make 20% commission, we make 15% commission. Then your talent thinks that's all you've taken, but there's a secret £2,000, £3,000 sat on top. I think this is a big problem as well, where a lot of work in our industry doesn't get contracted. If you have a contract, unless you're in cahoots with the client, there's no way to pretend what the fees were. But when it's not contracted, which I would say, unfortunately, probably over 50% of the work isn't contracted, then again, it's open for exploitation.
You're always going to be found out. You're always going to be found out. You know, you're at a level where people either, you know, they're going to, the moment people are skin at the moment, especially, you know, if people haven't got no money, if they feel they've been hard done by, if they feel that they haven't, and they find out that someone's conned them or taken more money than they should have done or taken more commission, they're going to go mental. They're going to, you know, we've seen it on Twitter.
I think this again is where we need that layer of infrastructure on top that then can regulate the industry. Very similar to that sort of RIAA system where you put the contracts in and then it splits. Almost like to keep operating as an agency, you should have to register every contract with the union, for example. And therefore, the industry is regulated on every single job. Things have been done the right way. You can't get paid without that escrow account that equity are running. You can't enter the escrow account without your contract. Everything should be proved and on paper. They're similar to fee for agents in football. They have to sit a regulatory exam every single year. And if they don't pass, they're not allowed to operate in football. Why isn't performing arts the same? We're looking after careers. If anything, on an even rockier ground, because we don't make the amount of money as football, so you don't have that safety net. It should be regulated to an absolute. It should be like a fine tooth comb.
I've said the word total a couple of times. You know what I'm going to say? Total what? Total transparency.
Yes.
Total transparency. People have said to us, it's so good that you give all the information. Why do we give all the information? The reason we give all the information is because it's not worth the aggro and the harassment you would get if you miss out. If we make one little mistake as an agent, fucking hell. Do you know what I mean? Now, the performer, they can make mistakes. They can fuck up all over the place, go wrong, be late, blah, 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 blah. But if an agent does one thing, you get so much shit. Now, we know that. That's the life of being an agent. So I just don't get why you would want to not put all the information. Here's your email. Here's all the information on the job. Here's all the fees, all the buyouts, your wardrobe fees. Everything is in there. Because the moment it's not the same as the person who's doing the exact same job as you, and you know for a fact, even though it's in their contracts, you're not allowed to talk, you're not allowed to, disclose information. You know they all do. The moment you get on a thing, people are, what are you getting paid? Oh, what people talk. So I don't know. I just don't know. I just, not disclosing the fees. That's completely crooked. I think not disclosing all the fees in the emails is completely crooked, because you just what's the benefit of not giving all the information, apart from if you're then trying to skim off the top, if you're trying to take some, or so.
Well, this is it. I've seen actors on Twitter putting on about like solutions to put more transparency into the industry as like a fallout of this. Then I've seen other agents coming back to that and be like, you don't have to distrust all agents. Please don't make our jobs harder. And I just keep thinking, like, how is extra transparency going to make your job harder? It sounds like there's something to hide. We would have no problem with doing that. To be honest, I'd actually quite like to do it.
Me and you don't need the information. Do you know what I mean? Okay, thanks for that information. I'm now going to give it to the client, to our actor, to our dancer.
I hate having any thought that one of our dancers might think there's something they don't know. Any level of extra transparency, please give it to me, honestly.
Well, we love it, don't we, when someone says to us, oh, you gave us so much more than, well, great. We're doing our job properly. Well, we're doing our job, full stop. It's not about, trying to be better or anything. There's a certain level of professionalism and work that you have to do as an agent. It's the bare minimum, and the bare minimum is giving exactly what they need to be able to, do the job and know what they're getting paid wise.
It's like I said at the start of this topic with like uncontracted work. Actually, if your agent puts you on uncontracted work, they shouldn't be getting their commission because they haven't done their job. Our value is sorting out your contracts. If the client isn't given a contract, your agency should be giving them an agency contract, so at least your rights are all signed, covered, protected. Your agent has to evidence that they've done their job.
It's too easy for us just to concentrate on Archie. I think these things need to be said, and it's not just that the agents are bad or the client or the companies using the casting directors or the casting actors. Performers, they've got to make sure that they're doing their bit as well, and that everyone's doing their bit.
The things that are normalised within the industry that shouldn't be normal. So there's huge agencies out there who have ways of operating that makes it look like they have something to hide when they don't. There's so many terms you see in a contract that there's just no reason for, that they'd never actually hold anyone to, but they're just there because it's traditional. And this is where it's like everything needs like pulling apart and rebuilding, because there's such a rooted normality that opens doors for exploitation that just doesn't need to be that. But it's like this where they don't disclose the fees, isn't it? When it's normal for agencies not to disclose fees, then there's probably 80% of them are still paying you the right money. But that allows the 20% to go, oh, you don't have to tell them what the fees are. Perfect, we don't have to pay what the real fees are then. It's too easy. That transparency shouldn't be a scary thing for the industry. It only is because it's normalised not to give transparency. But there's no reason for all that to hold up.
The reason we pay on the day, if we've received that money and we've got the invoice, we'll pay on that day if we can. If not, it'll be the next day. The reason we do that is purely because I don't want people having a go at me. I don't want the aggro, let alone the reputation.
And you don't want to make a mistake and like miss a payment either. Like if you're planning to do everything on Friday, by Friday you've got that many, you might accidentally miss a job. You've got to just do it as it comes.
Would you be, would you be more inclined to pay people on time if you knew without fail you were always going to get that invoice on time? Because I can see, and I'm not saying this has happened, I don't know. But if over a period of time an agent's like, that dancer, they never get their, or that actor never get their invoice in time, so I'm going to be laxed about the way I treat them, the way I talk to them. I can see how that can happen, but then it's for the agent to say to say, right, listen, if you don't send that invoice, you're not getting paid. You need to send it off. The moment you do that job that night, send it, then you've got it.
Well, this is where there's a possibility of creating a system that just auto-generates a lot of it. Do you know what I mean? So once you've entered the contract, let's say it's an equity system. Equity has the details they need to put on the invoice, can lift the figures from the contract. It's got the client's address because they're listed on the contract. Everything's auto-generated. So you can't have a problem of, well, this paperwork weren't done, this weren't done. Invoicing is a very paperwork thing to do. It existed before computers, before printing. We don't actually need to still be doing that. There can be a better way with technology. Yeah, for accounting purposes with the government, we need to be able to file an invoice. That doesn't mean it actually has to be filled out by hand in this day and age. There can be a system fixes all of those problems as well.
Okay, money raised but not paid to charity. Now, again, this isn't, we can only go by what we've read, but why don't you just fill us in there?
Yeah, so Bodhi also had a sister company called Access Workshops, who were running workshops for actors. By the sounds of it, the accusations are they've been telling their actors that they have to attend these workshops that they pay for. And I believe they've been available for like people external to the agency as well. Now, I don't know if it's all of them, but certainly a number of these workshops have been running on the premise that any profit was going to be given to charity. Now, throughout the past sort of 2 weeks of this all coming out, people have been contacting these charities to find out if the money had ever gone to them. And a lot of the charities are coming back saying, yeah, never heard from this guy, never heard from this company, never received the money, didn't allow our name and logos to be put all over the promo. So it certainly looks like money that you thought you were giving to charity has been taken and used for profit. It's just crazy to think that may have gone on.
Why would he say it's going to charity? Now, is it because because what I've seen a backlash on people running workshops, and this is one of the things which I think is not as bad as it seems. But if you're saying money's meant to be going to charity and it don't, I don't get why you would do that. Is it because he's thinking, well, it'd look bad if I'm making money from it?
I guess to be cynical, there may also be a side of people are more willing to part with their money when it's for charity. So you can probably get away with charging a bit more.
What it is because I started to look into this part of it, and there was a lot of people against agents making money from workshops, and I was like, right, I get that if they're saying, right, you have to do it. If you have to do the workshop, if you're on the agency, that doesn't seem good. But if you've got your own separate business, because we were sort of putting this against, like, in the dance world, you have agencies that we've done it in the past. We've put on workshops, we've put on classes, and obviously we make money from that. We pay the teachers, we pay whoever is doing it, and we make money from it. It seems in the acting world, people get a bit of beef about people putting on these and knowing if the agent is making money from it. What's your opinion on this first?
For me, when I look at what is getting said in the acting world, I think it's been taken a bit too far. I think there's a point in there that you certainly shouldn't be marketing it to your own talent. Obviously, as an agent, we're only meant to make money when our talent make money. So we shouldn't be able to then go, oh, come along to this dance class, come along to this workshop and pay us. That's wrong. That is like an admin fee. But external to your agency, as long as
hang on, you mean if we're saying you have to?
Yeah. That's it. I don't think we should be able to market to them specifically. Do you know what I mean? I shouldn't be able to be like, hi, person here, please come along on Friday. That's wrong. I don't think it's even a case of saying they have to. I think it's a case of individually picking them out. For example, let's say you're sat at home tonight, you've just made your tea, you've just sat down on the sofa maybe to put a film on, and then your friend messages you, I'd love for you to come round tonight, are you free in half an hour? You're going to feel a pressure to do that. They shouldn't feel that pressure. If they want to choose to come along, then totally fine, but they shouldn't be directly marketed at. That's where I sit on it.
When you say directly marketed, you're saying like an email called, you're not saying, right, oh look, you're part of a mailing list which advertises these workshops.
Yeah, that's it. If you happen to be on the mailing list, you've not been picked out. If I've individually sent you a message, you know that is specifically intended, I want you specifically to come. I think just generally going, we have this on, is fine when you know it's on a mass scale of, this is actually just advertisement. This isn't direct. So it's like the difference of an Instagram post to an Instagram DM. Post is fine because that's for public. DM is not because that's for personal.
Yeah, but I just don't get why you would say it's going to charity and then it doesn't. I can't see a way out of this for him. He just needs to come out and say, look, I'm really sorry, I fucked everyone over, I'm a dickhead, and I've learnt my lesson. I'll never do this again, and I'm going to leave the industry. That's and go do another thing. That's what needs to happen. I mean, I don't, maybe.
I guess this poses questions about the regulation again, doesn't it? There should be a way to block anyone that's done this from the industry. Which, from what I've read, he's done this once before, been found kicked off Spotlight and managed to come back in another guise. It shouldn't be able to happen. Like, you should have to give your ID to register as an agent within Spotlight, maybe, so we can catch it on like a blacklist.
It's disappointing to see. It's upsetting to see. It's upsetting to see actors and performers being taken the piss out of and exploited, and perhaps there is some kind of naivety as well, on behalf of actors as well, thinking that they should just trust. As much as we all should trust each other, you've also got to, there's been plenty of pop bands, Bay City Rollers, even the Beatles, they trusted people at the start, and then years to come, they found out that their contracts meant shit and they didn't have this and they weren't getting that. So there needs to be a level of, choosing who you get represented wisely by, checking, are they a legitimate company? Do they have registered accounts? Do they have a website? Do they have terms and conditions? Do they have privacy policies? All these things will give you that thing of whether they are gone.
This is the problem without the regulation, though, because Bodhi had all of that. This is where our industry right now is too easy to exploit. For all intents and purposes, they were totally legit. You can't even put it down to like naivety with the actors, or like they shouldn't be so trusting, because our industry is built in a way that they have to be trusting. There's no alternative. Without that transparency system, there's no way for them to know. You can't actually place the blame on anyone's heads other than the ones exploiting it, and then just the industry as a whole for not having put something else in place. I don't think it's something that any of us can individually fix. There's a massive gaping hole of infrastructure, and you can't put the blame on someone because of that.
Okay, I'm not trying to put the blame on anyone, especially not the actors. I don't want anyone having a go at me for that. I am trying to do a lot of sort of devil's advocate on things. And one thing I will ask you about, Bailey, is this: there was reports that they were charging parents. Now, I know that there are a lot of parents out there who will do anything for their kids. Now, should it be that, when a parent goes to get an agency for a kid, I always think, well, they should know. They should know that you don't pay. But then how should they know? How should they know?
I was going to say, who's educating?
But surely, if I'm taking my son somewhere, it's up to me, it's my responsibility to make sure that place is a proper place. And I don't know. I just think, go on.
I don't think we can put blame on people at the entry level. If you turn up to a gymnastics class, you don't expect to be an Olympic athlete by the end of your first lesson. As an industry, we have to know that people are going to come in with a lack of knowledge, a lack of experience, and therefore look after people at that entry level. Again, I'm going to take it to a transparency system. Equity are meant to look after the industry. So actually, not just on a job level, contracts should be filed. Representation level. Everything should be filed with equity or some collective group that can be formed to make all of these things official. And therefore, you can regulate the contracts. Yet there is no joining fees. That can be filed. You are now officially represented. It should all be logged to, again, cut out any room for exploitation. We've got to look after those parents, not just say parents do better.
I don't know why I'm trying to search for some kind of... I'm not in any way trying to blame.
I mean, it's easy to take a mechanistic viewpoint, isn't it? Of if the parents knew, then it wouldn't have happened. So easy, let's say parents. Because it's very hard to identify the actual missing piece. You want to find somebody to blame. It's far more tangible to put it there, but it doesn't sit right.
again, it's a bit of a blurry sort of place, isn't it? This joining, and you need this and you need that, so it becomes not a joining fee, but like an admin or a website or all these things. I find that crazy. God, I would love it. I'd love it if we received money for all the website promotion we did. Do you know what I mean? We'd be absolutely rolling in it if we charged our clients all the stuff that we do, website wise and marketing wise and all that. But surely that's just part of the job, isn't it?
That's it. That's our advertising material. It's not their advertising material. They pay for their headshots. We pay for our web profiles. Do you know what I mean? Otherwise, if you want to make them pay for the web profile, you need to pay for the headshots. We can't have it both ways. And by law, they are actually allowed to charge a website admin fee. But morally, in my mind, that is so wrong. I think that's a law that needs to change, if I'm honest with you.
We do need to wrap this up, but before we go, I just wanted to sort of get your opinion on, it appears there's been no official, unless it's happened today, there's been no comment from Equity or the Stage or Spotlight. Like, why do you think that?
I know that Equity are doing work on this behind the scenes, which we must say. I'm surprised not to have seen a statement. Possibly there could be a legal reason for that, I'm not entirely sure. But it's certainly strange. The Stage having not picked the story up at all, yet Deadline have it out there. That's unexplainable. If Deadline don't have a legal problem, then how can the Stage have one? So the Stage I'm not giving any grace to in my mind right now. Spotlight
kind of, they probably don't want to be pushing this because there's
well, that's it. They've already kicked him off once and somehow he's got back on. It exposes a flaw in their system. And really, that's why they should be giving a statement, because they've massively enabled this.
Cool. So, few links. I would say if you want to delve into this story, we're going to put the links to Deadline. We're going to also 98 Degrees podcast. Is it 90 Degrees?
90%.
That's why I couldn't find them the first time I searched them. I was looking for 98 Degrees podcast. 98%. They are the ones that seems to have sort of broken it on social media after the actual Deadline, and they've done lots of good work on it.
That's it. Huge respect to 98% podcast. Huge respect to Helen Raw. Anyone else doing similar things in the industry, this is what is needed. We're in an era that things can be outed, which is a huge change from even 10 years ago.
Before we end, I just want to say, if you haven't seen our latest guest episodes, then click on the links below to see the episodes with Charlie Bruce, Ricky Cheer, Adrian Gass and Brendan Hansford. We've got many more coming. So yes, a long one today, but we needed to just sort of hammer it out really and just talk about it, don't you think?
Oh, exactly. That's it. I think we've covered it all now. So before we clock off, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, turn on your notification bell so you know all about it when we come back again next week. Nice one for today, Stuart. I'll see you next week, and I'll see everyone watching next week. Thank you for joining us.
Nice one, Bailey. See you on the other side in a minute. We're going to have a meeting probably. All right, laters.